Today is July 19th. It's the 201st day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. On this day in 1981, the heads of state of 7 of the world's wealthiest nations arrive at the Chateau Montebello in Quebec, Canada, for the Group of Seven meeting, known as the G7, scheduled to begin the following day. The 1981 meeting of the G7, also referred to as the Ottawa Summit, is the 7th informal forum held by the G7 nations, represented by Ronald Reagan of the United States, Margaret Thatcher of the UK, Pierre Trudeau of Canada, Zenko Suzuki of Japan, Giovanni Spadolini of Italy, François Mitterrand of France, and Helmut Schmidt of West Germany. And for the first time, the G7 are joined by the President of the European Commission, Gaston Thorn. These world leaders fly into Quebec on this day for some private meetings with each other in advance of the forum over the next 2 days, the 20th and 21st of July, 1981. During a private meeting between Presidents François Mitterrand and Ronald Reagan, on this day in 1981, Mitterrand reveals to Reagan that the French have recruited a high-level asset within the KGB, who has provided the French with what they call the Farewell Dossier, a collection of top-secret documents acquired from the KGB double agent, showing that the Soviets have been stealing American technology for nearly a decade. The double agent is KGB spy Colonel Vladimir Vetrov. Vetrov's job at Moscow Center is to evaluate the stolen technology for the Soviets. However, he becomes disillusioned with communism and Soviet ideology and offers his services to French intelligence, France's DST, the Directorate of Territorial Surveillance. The French give Vetrov the code name Farewell, an English word, so that if the Soviets find out about him, they'll think he's being run by the CIA. The dossier Farewell gives the French includes thousands of documents about the Soviets' technical intelligence gathering operation, as well as the names of some 250 spies stationed in embassies around the world. William Safire writes about the Farewell dossier years later in the New York Times, describing it as containing, quote, documents from the KGB Technology Directorate showing how the Soviets were systematically stealing, or secretly buying through third parties, the radar, machine tools, and semiconductors to keep the Russians nearly competitive with U.S. military-industrial strength throughout the 1970s. In effect, the U.S. was in an arms race with itself. The Farewell dossier that French President Mitterrand reveals to American President Reagan on this day in 1981 makes its way to the CIA. Among the many documents, the Farewell dossier contains what is essentially a shopping list of hardware and software the KGB would love to get their hands on. So rather than rolling up the spy networks and deporting all the technology directorate spies at embassies around the world, the CIA and U.S. military intelligence decide to help the Soviets with their shopping, providing them with modified or faulty technology. The CIA mounts a disinformation campaign and counterintelligence operation, transferring to the Soviets hardware and software that passes Russian QC, but then fails once it's placed into operation. Some of the highest priority tech the Soviets want to get their hands on is computer automation systems for their new Trans-Siberian gas pipeline, which will allow them to dominate the European gas market. The CIA inserts a Trojan horse into the automation system. Once installed and in use, The automation system adjusts the pump settings, increasing pressure and flow beyond what the pipeline is designed to handle. The system malfunctions, causing the largest non-nuclear explosion and fire ever seen from space in June of 1982. The Soviets realize pretty quickly that they've been duped, and now all the tech they've stolen is suspect, as is Farewell, Colonel Vetrov, who is discovered by the KGB, arrested, and executed. Soon thereafter, the CIA rolls up the network of hundreds of Soviet spies at embassies around the world, putting an end to the KGB's crucial intelligence collection program at the time the Soviets need it most. By 1987, the Soviet economy is in a downward spiral. The U.S. continues to build up its defenses, and the KGB is completely in the dark. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev and the Politburo realize they can no longer compete. A portent of change to come, and a turn of events set in motion when François Mitterrand reveals to Ronald Reagan the contents of the Farewell Dossier in the Chateau Montebello in Quebec on this day in 1981. There are 165 days left in the year. On This Day is produced by me, Dave Schultz. Thank you very much for listening. Born on this day in 1976, British actor Benedict Cumberbatch. I won't tell you what his fans are called. They're kids listening. You probably know, though. And Cumberbatch is referred to as the thinking woman's crumpet. I'll let you mull that one over. And born on this day in 1860, Lizzie Borden. Oh, we'll talk about her in a couple of days. So if you're still listening, she seemed like such a nice girl. Talk to you tomorrow.